Castlevania is a legendary series, but it hasn't gotten any action in a while. It's very reasonable for someone to not have played any games in the franchise. The just-released Castlevania collection is the perfect way to experience the origins of this historic franchise. So how are the origins of this historic franchise? What is someone playing these games for the first time in 2019 getting themselves into? So you know the term Metroidvania? You know where the Vania part comes from? Not these games. That didn't come in until 1997 in Symphony of the Night. This is the beginning of the series. None of these games feature exploring a giant castle and backtracking to find new abilities to let you advance. Get that out of your head. These games are all hardcore action platformers where you play one stage at a time until you beat the boss and they drop a big red orb and then you move on to the next level. More Mega Man than Metroid. Castlevania has legendary soundtracks, great atmosphere, and a super cool style that's all its own. This video will give quick reviews of each game and say what is appealing about them and who they would appeal to. I also suggest which games to start out with. Right now, we're going to start out with Castlevania 1, released in 1986 for the NES. By the way, this was the first game in the series I played. It's probably like 15 or something. Castlevania 1 is an NES classic. It's an action platformer with a bit of a twist. You see, the big thing about old Castlevanias is the jump physics. You know how a Mario or a Mega Man can hop all around and change directions and change the height of their jump? Simon Belmont cannot do that. He has 3 jumps, straight up, left, and right. That's it. No holding a button down for big air or a short tap for a quick hop. Your speed has no influence on the jump and you only have 1 walk speed anyway. This might have caused some of you to do a frowny face and think, maybe this isn't for me, this is just some NES game with crappy controls. It is not. Castlevania is the thinking man's platformer. The designers know about Simon's limitations and the game is designed around them. And what a game it is. This game is tight. Not in like a 90s definition of the word, I mean it is meticulously designed, incredibly realized, and just straight, simple, and pure. Thought and care is crafted into every area of this game. I need to stop right there before I go on and on about how great this game is. It's going to be a separate video. I'm supposed to be answering questions a newcomer would have. How hard is this game? It has the reputation of being extremely difficult, and yeah, it's very tough, but there's 2 things that help you out. One is infinite continues. You will never be forced to start the whole game over. Castlevania is 6 levels and the levels are divided into stages. Each door is a checkpoint. Die, you go back to the checkpoint, lose all your lives, and you start at the beginning of the level. Infinite continues means this game rewards persistence. There is only 6 levels and the first one is easy, so there's really only 5 you need to learn. Play the game in chunks and savor each victory is a huge accomplishment, because it is. Infinite continues means if you have the will, you can beat it. The other thing that helps this game out is it is entirely fair. So many NES games are just straight malarkey, just no way to avoid getting hit or a bunch of one-hit kills. Simon has a good-sized health meter and every hit is avoidable. Good planning and careful play can take care of any situation. If you charge ahead with no thought, like an idiot, then yeah, you'll get wrecked. The Mega Mans are obviously good games, but even they feature more situations that seem unfair and you have to take a hit. You will die a lot. 6 stages are more than enough to kill anything that moves. But you will learn from each death, and there is no reason this game should be unbeatable. Just take it slow and think, and you are good. Castlevania is a classic. I think it holds up even better than the Mega Mans. Mega Man got a lot of imitators and sequel series that expanded on its general gameplay, but Castlevania plays pretty unique, and not a lot of games ripped it off. This game is tough, but fair. This first game is one of 2 possible choices you should start this collection with. Next is Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. Simon's Quest is weird. People who grew up in the 80s seem to have fond memories of it, but if you played it later, there's a decent chance you think it sucks. It's not a straight sequel in terms of gameplay to the original. It has RPG equipment and leveling up, and it features a non-linear world that you explore. It's not divided into separate levels. It's basically Zelda 2. The problem with the game is the nonsense localization it got. This is an obtuse 80s game. People just lie to you and make no sense left and right. This might sound dismissive, but that's the basic gist. There's a lot of cool ideas here, but the game is highly improbable to complete without a walkthrough. I recommend new players avoid it. Sorry if you like it, I don't think it's a bad game, just don't play it without a walkthrough, and you should probably play the way better games included in this collection first. This is probably too simple of an analysis, but I want to keep this part short. Simon's Quest is a bunch of malarkey and you should avoid it for now. But it did introduce the best Castlevania song, Bloody Tears, so good for you, game. Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. What a lot of people consider not only the best of the NES trilogy, which is really only saying it's better than Castlevania 1, because who's going to pick Simon's Quest? I mean, 3 should be better than 1 since it came out 4 years later. But anyway, it's not just people's favorite among the NES games, but many consider it one of their favorites in the series. This includes folks such as Koji Igarashi and the director of Harmony of Dissonance, Shutaro Ida. The Netflix series was based on 3, it's popular. This game's a technical masterpiece, with it being one of the most advanced on the NES. There's some really cool graphical effects, the soundtrack is incredible and involves some well-known trivia. The Japanese version's cartridge contained an extra sound chip that allowed 3 extra channels and a lot more sounds to be utilized. The Japanese version has the most advanced sound of any NES/Famicom game. The US version still has a good soundtrack, just not as good. I'm not going to go into too specific detail, but Japan got the best version of the game. Better sound, better gameplay balance. The US version contains some super minor religious censorship, and a couple of sprites and effects are more advanced in Japan. If you have the ability, you should check out the Japanese version first. As far as the game itself, its big addition is the total of 4 playable characters. You got the standard Trevor Belmont, the acrobatic pirate Grant, powerful offensive wizard Sypha, and Dracula's son Alucard. You can only have one partner at a time with you, but you can switch at any time. Tying into the multiple characters feature is alternate pathways. After certain stages, you will have the choice to go up or down. For instance, after stage 1 you can go up and head to the clock tower to get Grant, or just skip it. There are a total of 16 stages in this game, and one playthrough will see about 9 or 10 stages depending on the route you take. That's quite a bit more content than Castlevania 1's 6 stages, and there's 4 characters to 1, and it's technologically impressive. It's easy to see why people think this is one of the best games in the series and best on NES. The thing is, I'm not one of those people. I think Castlevania 1 is better. Dracula's Curse has 16 stages compared to the original 6, but some of those stages are super weak. Level design in 3 gets downright bad at some points. The dropping block stage is awful, and too many levels emphasize verticality and stairs. Castlevania 1 is super fair. Dracula's Curse is not, and can get super frustrating at points. I'm also not a fan of how partners work. The game throws so many overwhelming things at you, and its solutions let you cheese some of it with a partner. Alucard is literally useless, except you can turn into a bat and just completely skip certain areas. Grant just sucks in general in the US version. Sypha is OP in combat and tears through bosses, but at least it's super fragile to balance that. The partners are there to basically let you cheese a specific part of the game, and I don't find them that fun. It has higher peaks than the first game, the lows are much lower. If you put in the time, then yeah, Dracula's Curse could be a masterpiece. It certainly has a lot of replay value, and it's a very deep game. I don't recommend playing it until after you beat the first game, it is significantly harder. Dracula's Curse has more, but the first game is tighter, and I prefer that style of game. Castlevania 3 is a beast of a game with a lot to like, but it really makes you work for it, and could take a lot of effort to truly love. Super Castlevania 4, a true classic. The most popular classic game among the common man. Hardcore fans of this series might think Dracula's Curse or Rondo of Blood is a better game. Rondo is. But Super has a popularity that cannot be matched. It was an early Super Nintendo game, and is a great technical showcase for the system. The game was kinda crazy on the Mode 7, because that was very impressive in 1991. Super is a reimagining of the first game in the sense it has the same story, and by that I mean no story. Simon Belmont heads off to kill Dracula, that's it. Those are the only characters, and there's no dialogue or cutscenes once you start the game. There's a cool intro, and that's it. Super Castlevania 4 is both an evolution of the gameplay seen in the first game, and a de-evolution of Dracula's Curse. There are no other characters or alternate pathways to explore. It's just whip-wielding Simon going through the same 11 levels in a row every time. How big a deal this is for you depends on how much you like 3. Like if you love 3 and wanted to check out 4 and saw it's missing a ton of stuff from 3, I get why you'd be disappointed. If you wanted Super to be a follow-up to Dracula's Curse, you may be upset, but if you want 4 to follow the original, then you will love it. I love the classic Belmont action, and most action platformers follow this level structure, so it's not a negative. The features may be stripped down, but Simon has some new abilities. Super Castlevania 4 is the most accessible of the classic Manias. I recommend a new player either starting straight from the beginning with 1, but 4 is also good if they get frustrated with 1. 4 is easier because Simon's jump is a lot more flexible. You can change directions in midair and aren't committed to the jump. You can hop on and off stairs as you please and even moonwalk on them. The moonwalk doesn't make the game easier or have a purpose, it's just fun to do. Sub-weapons are separate buttons, which is nice, and you start with more lives. But the biggest change to the gameplay is Super Castlevania 4's most praised and most controversial addition, the ability to whip in 8 directions. For too long, the Super Castlevania 4 discourse has been defined by this mechanic. Too many people are like, Super Castlevania 4 is 8-way whipping, it's automatically the best, why didn't every game control like this? That's a pretty common opinion on this game, but there's also backlash to this mechanic. They say 8-way whipping makes the game too easy and boring to play through. It is true that at some points you're just kind of going through the motions with your brain not working very hard, but it's not really a big problem. 4 starts out a lot easier than the other games, and the first few levels are kind of breezy, and that's where the whip feels overpowered, but later in the game the challenge ramps up. 4 is still a challenging game, so I don't consider the whip completely broken. Super Castlevania 4 may take a step back from 3 in some ways, but it is a super fun game. It's just fun to play. You should begin this collection with either Castlevania 1 or Super Castlevania 4. 4 is probably the friendliest game in the collection. Hopefully you won't get spoiled on 8-way whipping if you play it first. It may not have the highest peaks in the series, but it's just extremely solid throughout. I love it, even if most bosses are lame. Super Castlevania 4 has an extraordinary atmosphere that no other game in the series can match. The soundtrack is excellent and unique compared to the other games. It is a little more subdued and really draws you into the experience. It focuses more on atmosphere, but it knows when to bring out the jams. The sound effects are also great with one of my favorite whip sounds. Super Castlevania 4's OST induces the most tension of any of the games. Other games have catchier melodies, but 4 stands out with its unique aspect. It is impossible to pick out a best Castlevania soundtrack, and I don't even think it is 4. I just wanted to give it some praise. It cannot be overstated how good Castlevania's music is as a whole. Castlevania Bloodlines, the only game in this series released on a Sega console. Bloodlines is a good game, but I don't believe it's one of the best. I prefer the original, Super Castlevania 4, and 2 games not in this collection, Rondo of Blood and Chronicles, over it. Bloodlines' biggest issue is timing. It was released after all those games I just mentioned, but it doesn't really bring anything new to the table, nor perfect any of the old things. In Bloodlines, you have 2 characters to play from, the standard whip person, John Morris, and the spear user, Eric Licarde. You cannot attack in any direction like in 4, but you can angle the direction up or down during jumps. John's only new ability is he can hook across ceilings, but that doesn't really come up that much and is extraneous. Eric can do a goofy super jump. There is no character switching like in Dracula's Curse, you play as whatever character you choose for the entire game. My issue with Bloodlines is the stages. There's only 6 stages, but they're all way too long. I know this isn't an exact science, but here is a list of how many stages and how many blocks each game has. Look how uneven Bloodlines' distribution is. Each stage should have been split in 2. Take a page from Sonic's book and have an Act 1 and Act 2 in each area. There's limited continues for some reason, which is just annoying. The pathway system can help with that problem, but continues still should have been infinite. The stages feature a lot of gimmicks too, and it's probable at least one will annoy you. There's the climbing the Leaning Tower of Pizza, this mirror section that makes it hard to see, a lot of waiting for water to rise or fall, stuff like that. This game is also light on health pickups, which is extra annoying in the long stages. Bloodlines has gotten a reputation of being an underrated masterpiece in recent years, but I think that's just because of its unavailability. It was never released on Wii Virtual Console, or re-released in general until now. Since not as many people could play it, it was kind of the hipster thing to act like it's special. It's not as good as Super, nor as ambitious or deep as Dracula's Curse, and not as tightly designed as 1. It is a good game, worth the time to play, and it's one of the faster paced games in this series. It's just not the best, and I wish it was a little better. It's also super violent, which I guess could make it appeal more to you. Bloodlines is good, but not great. Also, the sound effects are dumb. Castlevania: The Adventure. The first Castlevania game on the Game Boy, it's trash. I take no joy in saying this, but it's true. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone defend this game. It just stinks. There's no reason for anyone to ever play this game, and a newcomer should avoid it at all cost. At least the next Game Boy game is a huge improvement. Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge. It's fine. It's pretty good for the time. If I was a kid in 1991 and wanted to play Castlevania on the go, Belmont's Revenge would have been very satisfactory. But there's not much of a reason to go back to it. I don't think it's a hidden gem. If you really love Castlevania, then you can check it out and might come away very impressed. A lot of people are. But I think in 2019 it's not really necessary to check out. There's like 6 significantly better action side-scroller Castlevania games. If you want to, you might really enjoy it, but if you don't play it, you aren't missing out on that much. It has a unique rope climbing mechanic that is utilized very well, but it's slow-paced even compared to other Castlevanias. Pretty solid game, but the final boss is complete malarkey. I actually quit at the final boss and have never beaten it. If you grade it on the Game Boy curve, it is very good and impressive. If you don't, then it's fine. It's not a great video game, but a very good Game Boy game. And compared to Adventure, it's a masterpiece. If we compare it to other Game Boy adaptations of classic franchises, it's not as good as Mario Land 1 or 2, it's not as good as Mega Man 5, better than Mega Man 1, 2, and 3, probably similar quality to Mega Man 4 if that tells you anything. I don't know why it would. This is unfair, but obviously it doesn't compare to Link's Awakening, because very few video games ever can compare to Link's Awakening. To wrap up Belmont's Revenge, go play Link's Awakening instead. Kid Dracula. I've only played a few levels of this game, and it was the Game Boy version, but this is actually a very good game. It presumably stars a Kid Alucard and plays a little more like Mega Man than Castlevania. The Famicom version is being translated into English for the first time ever on this collection. I don't have that much experience with this game, but it seems very enjoyable and cute, and word on the street is it's good. Definitely worth a try, even if it's the least Castlevania-y game on this list. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching my Castlevania collection video. I hope you all learned a lot, and will go play Link's Awakening now. Alright, fine, I'll end this properly. In case you were unaware, I like Castlevania. It plays differently than many 2D action platformers. It has possibly the best music of indie video game series ever. I know what I just said. If you are new to this series, Super Castlevania 4 is probably the easiest game in this collection. You should start with either 1 or 4. Castlevania manages to have both a super cool style, but also retain a haunting atmosphere. There's nothing else like it. Some games are more stylish than others, some are goofy, some are classy, but whatever they do, it is almost always done right. Even if none of these games sounded appealing to you, you should still check out the series in some fashion. Symphony of the Night is a classic, and Area of Sorrow is amazing. Those are the Metroidvanias to play if none of the games in this collection interest you. Final score of each game. I have/will have reviews that go into much greater detail on specific games here and here. Hopefully more games in this series will get re-releases. Since this is Volume 1, it seems likely, but you never know. In conclusion, go play Link's Awakening. I'm serious. That game's the best.